pregnant cat gives birth, but not to kittens. Alice and her team were always surprised by what Muska, the cat, had in store for them. This new development, however, was another level. The staff searched throughout the zoo for one-year-old Muska. At this point, they could only hear her faint cries. All day, she'd been acting strange. She waddled uncomfortably with her swollen belly. They were all anxious that if they didn't find her on time, then something else might. Eventually, they found her, but she had an unexpected visitor with her. The Smithstown Zoo was first and foremost home to large exotic animals like bears, camels, leopards, lions, lizards, monkeys, reindeer, and turtles. It was never called home to house cats. Then one cold winter morning, as Alice, the zookeeper, was headed to work, she noticed a small mountain of dirt moving on the side of the road. As she peered closer, she realized it wasn't dirt that she was seeing. Alice picked up tiny Muska, who fit in the palm of her hand at the time. The little kitten had been in the cold so long that icicles were at the end of her nose. It was unknown to Alice whether or not the kitten would even survive the night. Still, she gently placed the kitten in her jacket and continued to work. There, the vets did everything they could for Muska and then waited. Muska proved everyone's doubts wrong when she lived through the first 3 nights. The zookeepers would take turns showering the kitten with love in the staff room between shifts. She even managed to run around every day despite being weak and underweight. Soon she was part of the family. However, they were still uncertain of the danger she faced. Muska continued to grow, and as she did, her desire to explore grew as well. She could only experience the outside world from the window in the staff room. The staff struggled to keep her safe because of the wild animals in the zoo. Then one day Muska slipped out just as Alice opened the door. She'd lived indoors for over a year now, only leaving for short intervals while on a leash. No one knew how she'd handle the harsh world outside. Muska wasn't seen again for 2 days, even though Alice had been searching for her. Alice worried that she'd wandered into the wrong pen, perhaps a dangerous one such as the crocodile's pen. Her colleagues reminded her not to get her hopes up about finding Muska, but Alice wouldn't listen. Instead, she continued searching with the faith that the little cat was alive. Eventually, Muska found her way back to the center at the zoo. Alice first saw her pawing at the glass door, waiting to come inside. She teared up seeing her. Although the plan was to find Muska a home, Alice now knew that she couldn't say goodbye. Her love for the cat wasn't the only thing that was growing. Alice began to notice a change in her sweet cat after a few weeks. Muska had become lazy and crabby. Before, she was playful and enjoyed hiding under the tablecloth to paw at passers-by. Alice decided to leave the door open for Muska so she could further explore the zoo. Unfortunately, the cat had lost all interest in the outside world. She was content to lie outside on the warm ground. They could have never guessed the reason. Alice was ready for a hot cup of tea after finishing her rounds of feeding. She entered the staff room only to find that Muska was missing again. Only this time, Alice wasn't worried. She knew that the cat was smart. She'd find her way home once again. The next day, the rain started falling harder and heavier. Alice could tell by how the animals were acting that something was off. Then she heard the thunder. Alice and the rest of the staff decided that it was time for Muska to get inside. They took out their flashlights and began searching. She didn't seem to think that Muska would leave the grounds, as there was plenty of food and small rodents around. It wasn't until she passed the lion enclosure that they heard the faint cry. The noise was coming from the wooded area of trees and plants. It was there in a bush that Muska sat. But she wasn't alone. Something was crawling on her chest. Muska refused to leave the bush, so Alice crawled in after her. There, safe in Muska's care, were 4 newborn kittens and baby hedgehogs. What would Alice do? She had no idea where they came from or why they were there with Muska. Unsure of how to handle the situation, Alice put them all in a box of blankets and headed for the vet room. She had so many questions. Alice told the vet everything that had happened. He only laughed until he opened the box and saw for himself. His smile left and he whispered, "I've never seen anything like this." Then he checked Muska and her young to make sure they were healthy. The vet put the hedgehogs in one box and the cats in another before leaving the room. They couldn't believe what they saw when they returned. The mother had moved the kittens from her box to the hedgehogs. There she sat with pride as her children snuggled in for warmth. It seemed the hedgehogs were not hurting Muska or her young kittens. Alice watched the newly formed family carefully until something clicked. In total, there were 8 hedgehogs, and Muska had adopted them all. She was not scared of the tiny pricks that most creatures would have avoided. It was amazing. Still, Alice was worried about the kitten's safety. She decided to try to nurse the hedgehogs by bottle away from the cats. However, they refused to eat for hours. She had no choice but to let them return to their adoptive mother. Alice wasn't aware that this wasn't the first time a species adopted outside of its kind. A Russian cat named Rosinka also adopted a baby squirrel monkey named Fyodor. A zookeeper brought the little monkey home after its mother abandoned it. Immediately, Rosinka began to treat Fyodor as her own and comforted him. Is there something about the cats in Russia that they tend to help needy animals? Overall, humans misunderstand cats. They aren't always as popular as household pets as dogs are, and many people dislike the malicious demeanor that some cats display. On the other hand, cat lovers have joined forces to bond over the joys of owning a fluffy feline. There are several benefits to owning a cat. For example, the risk of heart disease is much lower in patients who own cats. Owners also tend to sleep more soundly. Many find that the relaxed personality of a cat can ease their stress and anxiety. They find that even purring can promote relaxation. More than anything, cat owners enjoy the tranquil company their cats provide while watching TV. How would Muska do with all this new family responsibility? Alice decided that although it was odd to see her, she needed to keep Muska's family together. Somehow, the young cat was able to nurse and raise all her family. It wasn't until much later that they found out where the hedgehog's mother was. Tragically, on the same zoo grounds, their mother was involved in an accident with a lawnmower. Muska had discovered the babies, had seen them starving and without food. Alice was still unsure whether she'd rescued them before or after giving birth to her kittens. Muska continued to treat the hedgehogs like her children. Although several had doubts about the family dynamic, Alice needed to keep a close eye on them, so she set up a little house for them right outside the staff room. She's surprised that Muska still hasn't been pricked by the hedgehogs. They know that she's caring for them as their mother now. The internet went crazy for all the cuteness when Alice posted the photos online. Whether you're a cat or a dog person, it's impossible not to be touched by the gentle nature of Muska. It's as if she's showing the same kind of compassion that Alice had once shown her. But how do the kittens feel about sharing their mom?